My dad recently passed away. I feel weird knowing he is with me, but I don't feel him with me. I am an empath. Why can't I feel that?
The word weird implies strange when his connection to you is the natural condition. The transition of a personality from physical into non-physical is also very natural. The idea that death, the physical expiration of a corporeal form, is unnatural is, let us say, not unnatural, but implies a separation. And so the truth that his personality is very much still intertwined and connected to you is only thought strange, dependent upon your belief systems regarding a personality's physical transition out of their bodies. And so the idea that each human in physical form is connected irrevocably and unconditionally to non-physical is one of the most natural conditions if your belief systems are in alignment with that understanding. If you believe that a physical death is a separation, conscious is the representation of consciousness separating from themselves or you, then yes, it would feel weird to know that he is very much still present in your life. The word empath has been used historically to imply that it is an unusual ability, a spiritual ability, when in fact, the term as you use it is a natural ability that every human being shares and can utilize and leverages. It is a psychic ability. And since each one of you is psychic, since each one of you is clairvoyant, since each one of you is clairsentient, then you understand that not only is it not strange to know that they are still present in your reality, it is not strange to understand that communication can still exist. It just has to take a slightly different approach than was used when his personality was in physical form. And so the first level of being able to sense when his energy is present around you is to release the notion that it is strange, to release the notion that there has been a separation from you. No separation has occurred then. And if you can realign your belief systems to understand that they are as present with you now as they were in physical form, if you can accept this, then you create the opening of the gate to being able to explore the different ways that you can have interaction, continued interaction, and continued communication with your father's personality, who is now in a non-physical form, dimension. And that would be the beginning place where you could begin to then create a space in your physical reality to communicate with personalities that are in non-physical, not just your father, but other personalities as well. Again, there are many who are exercising their abilities to communicate with teachers, guides, to have communications with all that is, what they consider their higher self, their former friends in physical, former family members in physical who have transitioned into non-physical, you see. So your ability to perceive must begin with the belief structure that is creating the platform for the communication and the perception to exist while you remain here in the physical. You can be aware of the love that they still very much feel for you. Oftentimes, a close friend or family member that has transitioned back into non physical was someone that you have traveled with before in other incarnations. Typically, although not all the time, but much of the time, these are soul relationships that you have decided to experience love with before in other lives. And so you see, the desire for that personality, for that entity, for that person, as you think of it in your terms, very much still would like to enjoy communication and dialogue with you, is still very much interested in the goings on and happenings in your life. And so then it is you here in the physical that has to create the energy platform through which those interactions and those communications can continue. And the first place you can create that space is to redefine your idea of what is strange and what is weird and what is not, what is normal instead. If you can remind yourself every day that it is very normal to continue to perceive the company and the love of your Father here in this life, in this time space reality. If you can use the focus of your thought, the voice in your head, to create the idea that it is not only possible, it is probable. You have created the space through which those interactions and those communications can occur. I will give you an example. Having what you call a past life regression is not the only way it is not the only road, so to speak, towards being able to have this communication. It is the openness of your thoughts. It is the reflection of your ideas about who is dead and what dead is. You see, for there is no death in the terms that you think of it. These people are very much still alive. And so I will give you an example. Michelle's father in law transitioned out of the physical into non physical. Some years later, her former mother in law also then transitioned out of the physical into non physical. On the morning of the funeral, there was some thoughts, not realizing that the habit of those thoughts were reflecting former ideas and beliefs on what death was. And there was the contemplation then of not being able to verbally say good, as you in your terms call it, goodbye in the physical before the former mother-in-law had transitioned back into non-physical. And as she was preparing to get ready to go to the funeral, there was an enormous wave of love. And those in non-physical are able to communicate exactly specifically the kind of love that they would like you to perceive then. And the love that was communicated very strongly was a father's love, you see. One would think must be the biological father of hers in this life. It was not. It was the love of a father that she had a very close relationship with in another incarnation. And it was the former father-in-law here in this life was her father, her biological father, in another incarnation, and was very aware of the intricacies that were transpiring, since at the time of the former mother-in-law's funeral, the woman was no longer technically her mother-in-law, for she had gotten divorced prior to the mother-in-law's transition back into non-physical. And so she understood, because non-physical has the very easy ability to communicate with those of you here in the physical, not only the support and the reassurance and the love they still feel for you, then they can communicate to you who is sending the information. So in this particular example, she knew it was not her biological father in this life for the image of the father-in-law in this life, overlaying the image of the face of the biological father in the other life was communicated as an image into her mind. And then she understood what was happening. And there was appreciation, there was gratitude for the support, for what was potentially going to be a challenging day ahead. Actually, though, because of the very caring communication that she had with her former biological father in another life, who was her father in law in this life, because of that support, the day went very easily. These are communications that can be experienced regularly with loved ones on the other side, as you call it in your terms, the other side. The idea then is to create a thought pattern which carries an energy resonance that will allow the experiences to occur in your physical experience. And again, you are more than just your body. You are more than just your human brain. You are intuitive. You are psychic. You are clairvoyant. You are clairsentient. And all of these aspects can be utilized and enjoyed and leveraged in your daily life here, in your physical life, even though the communications are with personalities, entities, souls that are in non-physical. And this can be thought of as normal. It is just as normal for you to get a phone call from a kind friend or a loving family member as it is for you to get a communication from a family member or a friend in non-physical. The reception of the information that they want to communicate with you can be just as clear as that phone call. As some of you already know, non-physical communicates in many ways. When it is done psychically, it is traditionally used to communicate emotions, thoughts, images, sounds. And if your belief pattern, which you can set up, indicates that this is all normal, then you have created an ability, an energy pathway, so to speak, for you to have these interactions, experiences, and communications with those in non-physical. And you've created an energy pathway for them to initiate communication with you. So, one, you have to understand what your belief systems are about death, what your beliefs are about those who have transitioned back into non-physical, and you have to examine what areas of death, concepts, thoughts have you been taught to fear. For many of you have been taught that what I am speaking of is abnormal, when in truth, the opposite is true. It is the most normal, natural form of communication there is. So, if you can reorient your thinking into understanding that this is normal and natural, you will at the same time be able to minimize any fears that you have assimilated from others regarding what is now normal and natural instead of supernatural, abnormal, strange, or weird. We would begin by examining what you believe death to be, and then rearranging the focus of your thoughts, the voice in your head, to remember that it is not strange, it is not weird, it is normal, and it can be very, very enjoyable to continue to experience a love relationship with someone who has transitioned into non-physical. It can be very rewarding, and it can feel very fulfilling. There was a different pep in her step, so to speak, when she went to that funeral. She understood that those in her soul family who had transitioned into non-physical understood the challenge that was before her for the day and had come to her aid and her support She did not consciously have to ask for it. They were aware of where she was, where she is at every moment. And when there was a need, she did not have to pick up the phone and express vulnerability and say, I am in need. They understood that there was a need for added support for the challenge of the day, and they came. And she received and was reassured, and the tempo of her energy changed from this communication with non physical. And it was quite an enjoyable day. It was quite an enjoyable day for her and for those that were in her energy, you see.